Alright, no plan, no practice, no strategy, just the basic idea of what I want to do. There's a trend going around of, what was it? Assigning a political party or assuming a fictional character has your political party or opinions, and just making art based on that. Now, while this is very stupid, as someone who can analyze both the personalities and values of both real people and of fictional characters, I'm uniquely positioned to be able to actually identify what politics a character would actually have if they existed in real life. So, the method I'm going to be using to do so is 72 archetypes. Based on whatever personality archetype a character has, I can extrapolate from that and apply it to what's most likely to happen in the real world. But before I even start with Gene, we're going to have to take a look at what that will look like, what the 72 archetypes method looks like. No, what are you doing? Right here. Alright, so here's a basic idea of what the 72 archetypes graph looks like. It's 72 because each of these 9 categories of archetypes has 8 archetypes within it. They are arranged by space and time, and the names are the result of the values of those who belong within that archetype. Zeely comes from someone who falls within that space-time zone, who wrote the Zeely sequence sci-fi book series. Angel is the space-time zone of myself and of the very system we're using, 72 archetypes, as well as its creator. And so, as he's the one who chose the name, it's us choosing our own name. Time Lord was chosen by, well, the writers of the Doctor Who series. The Time Lord race characters typically fall within this space-time zone of personalities and values, so that's where it got put. Talry is from Stargate, I believe. It is the name used to describe the human race or Earthlings. The creator of this system decided to give them Towery because the next generation also falls within this space-time zone, so he wanted a slightly sci-fi name to go with them. Slave is because they invented slavery. See, what slaves usually engage in is hybridization, and slave is a hybridization of person and property. Freak love being called freak, except for the ones who go around saying, "What if I called you freak?" But even then, it's just a performative offense at it. Right winged authoritarians, they value territory, they're grousing. Grousing is a form of complaining. If you get the idea of a old man saying yelling at kids to get off his lawn, and you got the basic idea of what a right-winged authoritarian is like. Narcissist, it's right there in the name. They're narcissistic, self-interested. However, the false, what's the words I'm looking for? The false preconception people have about narcissists is that they don't care about what anyone else thinks. That is foolish because they need to care about what other people think so they can be what the other people want them to be. It's how they draw attention to themselves. It is the desire to draw attention to themselves that matters more than anything else. And they do need to care what other people think to do so. Psychopaths, however, have no concern about any other opinions. Like, as self-interested as narcissists are, psychopaths are self-existent. As in, they barely even believe in their own existence and don't really, and treat themselves as if they are the fictional game character, the main character of a video game, acting out a bunch of scripts, programs, and calculations when interacting with other people. Being a psychopath does not mean you are a mass murdering, going around murdering people casually. You just don't treat the needs, desires, etc. of others as anything you should be concerned about. Alright, so right here we're going to be starting with Jean, the leader of Monstadt and acting Grand Master of their knights. I have her as a max polarity right-winged authoritarian. Alright, I didn't go into polarities. Oh well, you can figure it out as we go. Though my confidence in that is around 60 to 70%. A real life max polarity right winged authoritarian, of which I'm much more confident in, would be Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of, or one of the major leaders of Israel, which a lot of people don't like nowadays. So, as someone in the right-winged authoritarian archetype, you would expect her to have a right-winged political faction, and in most cases you would be right. But it is possible for those of that archetype to end up on the left wing of the aisle. I got a friend who's part of our 72 Archetypes research group who typically does present the left-wing perspective in arguments and news, but really I think it's just because he's in the left-wing news bubble. Bit of a mistake if you ask me, but that's just who he is. But generally he does agree that of the two sides of the political aisle, the left is the worst one. So we're going to chalk that up as one character for here. And we're going to do it again because the next character is also right-winged authoritarian. Amber is positive polarity right-winged authoritarian. Her behavior, unlike with Jean, I am 100% certain of Amber's archetype. It's her identifying characteristics is one, how she picked up the wrong. Oh yeah, positive polarity right-winged authoritarian is the idiot overcompensator. Anyway, she picked up the wrong book to get instructions on how to be a top glider. At some point realized that she picked up a storybook, not an instruction manual, but she still read it from cover to cover. And later did so with the instruction manual as well. Another identifying aspect of this archetype is how they, in the particular way, they look up to their superior officers, as she does with Jean. So yeah, there's no uncertainty in Amber's archetype, and unlike a max polarity, a lower polarity right-winged authoritarian is going to be more likely to be just on the right side of the political aisle. Next, we have Lisa. She is a positron slave, which is, interestingly enough, the archetype assigned to one of my younger brothers and to George Soros. Fuck them both. As you might assume, I don't really like this archetype. Positron slave is called the babysitter. So you can imagine why I don't like my brother too much. He's in jail, by the way. Deservedly so. This archetype I was able to identify because of how flirtatious she is with any younger characters in the story, or younger looking, while... What's the words I'm looking for? Oh wow, we're 8 minutes in. But never really getting all that touchy-feely. No, that's not the one I'm looking for. Oh, right, it's not outright being flirtatious, it's the way she calls the main character and some others cutie. Another identifying characteristic is how she completely lost her shit when she found out one of her books in her library was stolen. Positron slave includes positive polarity, which would be Western-style dragons, who, like her, lose their shit when anything within their hoard is taken from them. Now, Kaya is a character who confuses me. See, he is a member of the Knights of Favonius, which is which is a militaristic police-style organization. And generally, that would include generally, people who join such organizations of their free will be a zealot, Towery, right-winged authoritarian, or narcissist. All the other personalities do not typically join such organizations of their own free will. Yet none of those archetypes actually seem to fit Kaya's behavior. I actually believe he may be a covalent Time Lord. You don't really see him doing much or acting much in the way of a officer, but again, I could be wrong. So covalent Time Lord would be like 20 or 30% certainty. But it does again fit his much more measured and effective flirtatious personality. It also fits the way he wears that fake unnecessary eye patch for no reason other than to needle his brother, because covalent Time Lord is the button pusher. And, well, as you would expect, they love pushing people's buttons. Or in Kaya's case, his brother's. A significant personality that is of this archetype would be Destiny, aka Stephen Bonnell, a famous left-wing I forgot. I was supposed to be identifying the political alignments. Lisa is a left-winger. Anyways, again, covalent Time Lord would also be Stephen Bonnell, a famous left-wing debater. So, Kaya, if I'm correct about his archetype, is also a left-wing personality. Heck, my secondary ideas for what his archetype could be would also be left-wing. So yes, I'm fairly sure that Kaya would be a left-wing personality. Barbara, let's see. I'm not sure about her archetype. I'm fairly sure it's slave. It's probably a base polarity slave, the most basic and boring personality there is. Oh yeah, that's why slave is white, because they're boring. Not because white people had slaves or the Slavic people, the origin of the word slave used to be slaves. They're just boring. That's why they're white. The basic bitch color. If I'm right about Barbara, she is the most basic of the slave archetypes. But again, that's like 10% certainty. However, the important part is that she is a priestess, very dedicated to her church, while also being a singer idol. This leaves her political affiliations a bit confusing, but I do think she'd end up on the right side of the political aisle, not because of her archetype, but because of her vocation. So let's move on to Diluc. Diluc, I believe, is a max polarity Time Lord. So we're going to put another mark here in the Time Lord slot. Am I doing... Alright, done 5 characters. Am I doing it right? Nope, definitely missed. Did I miss one? 2, 1, 2. Okay, I'm done it right. Yep. Wait, have I? I should have 6. 1, 2. Oh, right. I need 2 for slave because of Barbara. Whoop. There we go. I'm so bad. Anyways, I have Diluc as a max polarity Time Lord. I'd say about 60 to 50% accurate or confident in that one. Drop my phone. The characteristic or behavior that I saw that leans me towards him being that archetype is just the sheer amount of contempt or derision he has towards the Knights of Favonius, to the point that he tries to handle things himself in the background. People like to compare him to Batman because he has this soldier of the night persona going on, but Batman and Bruce Wayne are actually right-wing authoritarians. So while the comparison can be made, it is a surface-level comparison and completely worthless. Let's see. Now, as a Time Lord, you would expect the left wing, since I said the same for Kaya, but any Time Lord that possesses negative polarity, as a max polarity would, generally finds themselves on the right side of the political aisle. So, Diluc would be a right-winger, which would give even more reason for Kaya and Diluc to be at odds with one another. Next, we have Razor. Razor is hyperpolar Tauri, which combines the aspects of positive and negative. These are the this is the noble savage archetype. And is the archetype I have assigned to Putin, the leader of Russia. I don't have any max polarity Time Lords for Diluc. Anyways, well, as someone who can be compared to Putin, the leader of Russia, I think he might end up on the right side of the political aisle. Again, the noble savage. It's also an archetype assigned to Tarzan. So it always fits a character that's been raised in the woods by a pack of animals. It's also called the flying artillery, which is why Tarzan will scream through the air and crash down on his targets, and why Putin seems to love sending artillery after his neighbor trying to take it over. But yeah, let's assume kind of on the right side of the political aisle. Now, Venti is a confusing one. Oh yeah, I'm 100% certain of Razor's archetype if you haven't guessed. Back to Venti. I have Venti as a max polarity slave. This is the same archetype as Jordan Peterson. But I'm a bit uncertain of... Well, only a bit uncertain of this being Venti's archetype. I would say I'm 80 to 90% sure he is this archetype. But rather than being comparable to Jordan Peterson, he's more similar to another max polarity slave character like Hiramusa from Zenless Zone Zero or Shikamaru from the Naruto series. Domesticity is a max polarity slave core value. So anything that ruins the aspect of having a proper domicile is something that max polarity slaves aren't going to be too favorable of, which would also match up to Jordan Peterson's opposition to the trans agenda. As a result, I would suspect Venti is more likely to be right-wing than left, but there's still a decent chance of him being a left-winger. Klee is a child. We should not be assigning a political affiliation with a child, but we're going to do that anyways. Klee is a narcissist personality at the base polarity. So the most basic level of narcissists who haven't even developed the ability to be self-interested. But they are really good at being airheads. Think your Inspector Gadgets, or what was her name? Rapunzel from the Tangled series. Those are characters who fall under that air archetype. And they do, while Rapunzel isn't as airheaded, they're still kind of vapid. Klee, we like her, she's cute, but yeah, there's nothing going on behind those eyes. As for political affiliation, I gotta say, that's difficult to assess. Left or right, left or right. It really does seem like it'd be a bit of a coin flip. Yes, generally there are a good number of narcissists, more narcissists on the right side of the political aisle than not. I guess we can say, hmm. Actually, let's use the character she likes as an example. She likes. Oh wait, the only person she doesn't like is Deluke. I guess she'll. Let's lean a little bit towards being the left. So let's move on to Bennett, who is a hyperpolar slave. So we got another character in this category. Hyperpolar slave can be described with a very complicated phrase. Uh, the little one marked by fate walks the path paved by the heroes before them. In his case, he is marked by his bad luck. And the hero whose path he follows, it would actually be the protagonist, as well as his parents, who are revealed very far into the story. As for his political affiliations or preferences, I'm not sure. Let's see. Having a preference for fallen heroes, but since Zeely is the foundational, since all Zeely archetypes are some kind of hero and they would follow after a Zeely, it would really depend on the type of Zeely, since there's a coin flip on them for political affiliation. Though I think it's more likely he's going to follow in the footsteps of a Zeely lacking the capacity for objectivity, so he's going to end up on the left side of the political aisle. Noelle. She remember if me saying that those who are knights or members of such organizations typically are Zeely, Towery, right-wing, or narcissist. Noelle, while trying to be one of the knights, isn't actually a member. So we're safe to just assign her whatever, but as the maid knight, it's easy to assign her as covalent slave. That is where the slave personalities get their desire to be or enforce upon others the act of being servile. So we got another slave personality. Now, which side of the political aisle would that put her on? Honestly, if you want Yamato Nagajesko, I completely butchered that, but kind of wife who'll just listen to you and agree with you or not cause you any problems, this certainly would be it. This would likely end her up. She'll likely end up following the political affiliations of whoever she chooses to submit herself to. But that's more likely going to be on the right than left. Official. I did assign to her positron narcissist, but I'm still not very sure about that. There's a very fine line between someone who sees themselves as a messianic figure or someone who's just completely deluded themselves into some kind of fantasy heroic version of themselves. It's a fine line, but I'm not sure which side of that line she falls on. We're still gonna put a line here for narcissist. I could have sworn this game had a lot more Zeelies and Angels in it. Anyways. Let's see. If she is indeed a positron narcissist, I'm only like 20% certain on that, then she would in fact have the same archetype as Donald Trump himself, which would put her on the right side of the political aisle. But, well, we're gonna leave that there, at that. Sucrose, left winger, easy. She's definitely on the left side of the political aisle. As for her archetype, again, I'm not sure. She could be. She's not any of the ones at the bottom. She's either a Tauri or a slave. So I'm just going to draw a line between both of them to represent the possibility of being both. And I can't really be sure of which archetype if I can't even be sure of which space-time zone she's in. So we're going to leave her at that. Mona. Definitely a narcissist, attractive mega bitch. 100% certain. So, going to put her right there. As a narcissist with the covalent aspect, the attractive mega bitch is going to. That's where such narcissists get their self interested nature. The fact that. Definitely going to expect her to end up on the right side of the political aisle. I don't know of any covalent narcissists that have a significant political presence, so we're going to leave that with her there. Diona. She's an interesting character. Generally, when dealing with cats, you're going to put them in positron freak. However, the way she operates and the way she's trying to just ruin alcohol for everyone else doesn't really fit a freak personality. Sure, the outcome is freak, as for some reason all of her alcohol turns out tasting delicious, but her ultimate goal is to get rid of alcoholism entirely, which would fit the covalent right-winged authoritarian more. So we're going to place her here. Covalent right-winged authoritarian is the castrator, which does match her goals. And with that, with her being an right-winged authoritarian personality type, it would place her on the right side of the political aisle. I should have been really tracking things. But we're going to move on anyways. This is poorly made. Anyways, Albedo. 100% certain he is a covalent Zeely. Our first Zeely in the group. As a covalent Zeely, he is the archetype of objectivity and synthesis, as well as consequences. Though of those, he best represents the synthesis aspect of the archetype of objectivity and their particular brand of insanity. This is also the same archetype as Asmongold, one of the top political streamers out in the world. Quite famous in that category. Fun fact about Covalent Zeely and Covalent Time Lord in Kaya. Any archetypes of Zeely or Time Lord that possess the same polarity typically aren't going to get along well with one another. Like, as much as Kaya dislikes Diluc, he should really dislike Albedo, but I don't think any of the information in the story or character interactions matches up with that. But it certainly matches up in real life. Destiny and Asmongold just love fucking with each other. But again, while Albedo best represents the synthesis aspect of covalent Zeely, Asmongold most best represents the consequences aspect of their archetype. Rosaria. 90% certain she is negative polarity right-winged authoritarian. An archetype held by, what was his name? Frank Castle, the Punisher. The fact that she is just always sleep deprived certainly fits how negative polarity right-winged authoritarian is foobar and crippled. And the fact that her story quest has her literally hunting down an immigrant in the midst of some kind of crime, she is literally the ICE of Monstadt, Immigration Customs Enforcement. So she would definitely be on the right side of the political aisle. If you didn't already guess, so would Albedo, but for different reasons. Ayla. She is a confusing character. Her constant talk of vengeance brings to mind Batman, who says he is vengeance in the night, but the way she actually goes about employing the word vengeance doesn't really match what vengeance actually means. But there are a category of personalities that... oh, wait. Gotta put down another right here. There's another category of personalities that misuses words and also does something similar to what she actually does. When she's talking about vengeance, she's actually trying to bring balance to some kind of interaction. Though it doesn't make sense for a freak to be one of the Knights of Favonius. Covalent freak, the archetype of balance, would be her archetype. Though, again, I'm only like 30% certain. Aloy. She doesn't even belong in this game. But we can do her as well. As a character in... what was it called? Horizon Zero Dawn? Yeah, I think that's right. As the protagonist of Zero Dawn, her game's story is very similar to Ruby. I believe the archetype of the series and herself would be hyperpolar right-winged authoritarian, which would actually give her the archetype of actual Batman, but at a much lower meta level. As someone on that side of that archetype, she's likely to end up on that side of the political aisle. So, Mika. Honestly, this guy is a non-existent character to me. I forget this guy exists so very often. I gotta read his bio. So long as I don't cause any trouble for my squad mates. So he is an active member of the Knights of Favonius. Now, what would he be? Because I'm not too certain. I would assume he's a Tauri of some flavor. And I think he would end up on the left side of the political aisle. Alright, this guy is definitely a Tauri, the Preacher Man. And Preacher Mans definitely are going to be on the left side of politics. Durin. Dragon who once lived in a fairy tale. I think he's going to be another hyperpolar slave, which would make him more likely to be on the left side of the aisle. So, I think that's every character in the Monstadt, so let's go over it and tally up the score. Let's bring up the notepad. Or we can just use a calculator. Or something. Anyway. Alright. Right. Here we go. There we go. One, two, three, four. 2 on the left. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the right. 5. And lastly, we have 1, 2, 3 left wingers and 1 right winger. So 16 right wingers in Monstadt. Wait, no, that's not right. It's 14 right wingers in Monstadt and 8 left wingers. Meaning Monstadt is a right-winged Nazi city. But considering it's European, that makes so much more sense. But considering it's based on Europe, is anyone really surprised? Alright. Alright, after finishing my recording for Monstadt, I forgot that I never got to the Traveler or Paimon. So, gonna do that after the fact instead of before. Regardless of whichever Traveler you pick, Lumine or Aether, you're going to get the same archetype out of them story-wise. Hyperpolar Angel. I've already done one failed recording, so they're already marked. One for Angel and one for Slave of Paimon. Hyperpolar Angel is the archetype of Jesus Christ himself, the divine-made mortal who knows what's most important. Being the archetype of Jesus, actually back to the divine-made mortal aspect, the Traveler is a divine-made mortal, as they are or were divine beings flying through the skies of Teyvat before being coming into confrontation with one of the gods of Teyvat, who strips them of their divine wings and casts them down into the world as mortals. So, divine-made mortal. Jesus Christ is also a divine-made mortal, though how it played out for him is a bit different. And something similar to Jesus taking in all sins into himself, the archetype of sacrifice, the Traveler also has the ability to absorb abyssal energy into themselves to neutralize it. Though generally the archetype of sacrifice suffers some kind of negative effect for doing so, which hasn't happened in this story, though I imagine if they have to do it on a large enough scale, it will be deleterious. Being the archetype of Jesus Christ, they're generally going to prefer a Christian point of view over a not anti-Christian point of view, which would place them on the right side of the political aisle. Paimon, floating girl right here, she is negative polarity slave. 100% certain of that one. Generally identifiable by being highly food motivated. It's also the archetype of Eastern style dragons. But I don't have a historical figure who matches, or at least not one of significance. Alright. Generally, I think it's a bit of a coin flip on which side of the aisle they may find themselves on, but I'm going to assign to her left wing, as they can be quite susceptible to sob stories, but at the same time can be quite insensitive as well. So in the end, from the Monstadt characters, we have 15 right wingers and 9 left wingers, making Mondstadt overall more likely to oppose mass immigration, favor deportation, and generally side with the Trumpian political aisle.
So, wanna train with me sometime?
Well, that's the end of this recording and the end of this video. I do not care about anything. This is really just a way to put something out there people might be entertained by, but I'm probably boring the fuck out of everyone. I don't know how to make things entertaining yet. It's something to practice and to learn. But now I'm realizing that I do need to put in a proper outro. But I have no idea how to do so. So, at the very least, I should say thanks for watching if you ever actually stuck it through to the end of this video. And if you're actually interested in seeing more, it really is. It unless I suddenly get hit with thousands of likes and subscribers, it'd probably be months, if not a year, before I post another video on this channel. But hey, if this suddenly gets popular, I'll definitely make another one and put a lot more effort into it. Thanks and goodbye.